Hey, it's Lulu Ashay Love, and today I am going to do a video about the first time that I worked with a deceased person to help them through the bardos, to help them um, get into life. And I feel like maybe I could just do a whole series of my first fill in the blank because people are asking me about that a lot. I get emails, asking like yesterday's video, my first um, experience with contact and my first situation dealing with deceased people and what's it like to work with angels and, are dragons real? Like, you said you work with dragons. What's that like? So I might just end up doing, like a whole series on these kind of beginning experiences. Um, but today is going to be about working with deceased. So this isn't actually the very first experience that I'd had with being communicated, by energies from the other side. But this one is really memorable and notable. It was in the beginning of my awakening experience. When I was in my early 20s, I went through a 2 year long shamanic healing crisis, if you will. And during those 2 years, I went through the gamut of experiencing every like shamanic spiritual experience that you can experience. It's um, when I was having my spiritual awakening, and it's when I had my Kundalini awakening and I received my Grail Code transmission, which I want to do a video on that later. So this was the time when I was really just getting blasted open, like everything open, chakras blasted open, um, cellular memory blasted open, DNA light codes blasted open, psychic senses, sixth sense, all of these things just totally like. So I'm at my apartment, the same apartment that I was living in when I had my experience with Amon, and I had this big, really comfy, like lazy boy armchair that I had got at a Goodwill, and it was my reading chair, and it was so comfortable. And I like to sit in that chair and drink tea and read books. So I was sitting in this chair reading a book. It was late at night, somewhere around the bewitching hour. I think it was definitely, midnight, 1, something like that. And kind of similar to the story with Amon, I just knew that there was a presence in my apartment. Like, I could just feel it. There was a tangible presence of someone else other than me. And this time it was in my hallway. So the chair is kind of like here, and the front door is here. The altar I was talking about yesterday is like through the living room and like in front. Try to get it right in the camera. And then the hallway is like on this side and goes, yeah, goes like that. The bedrooms. There's a bedroom and the bathroom. Small apartment. So I'm sitting there and I just know it's a dead guy. Like, I can't really tell you how I knew, other than I just knew. Like, there's a dead guy hanging out in my hallway. And I have to admit that I was actually less scared about that than I was about when the Arcturian ambassador came to visit. I don't know why. But I really didn't seem to be as scared. as much as I remember feeling like, what am I supposed to do about this? You know, like, so I called my spiritual teacher at the time. I was actually working with three beautiful women, three amazing spiritual teachers that were all very different, and they all held a very different, you know, piece of the puzzle. And this particular woman, you know, had a lot of experience working with the deceased, and that was one of the things that, you know, we had kind of started touching on a little bit in our sessions, was that, you know, I had this extrasensory ability to tell when there were beings around, and I've had it since I was a kid. So I call her, I'm like, emergency, you know, like telepathically telling her, I know it's late, I'm sorry, please pick up the phone. And sure enough, she answers all groggy, like, hello. And I just blurt out, what am I supposed to do about the dead guy in my hallway? And she's like, oh no, like, hold on a second, let me, you know, clear my space and tune in. So she tunes in, and what she says is, there is a deceased masculine presence that is in your family that was, you know, was called to you, is coming to you because you are the most psychic person in the family. And very often when beings need help, lineagely speaking, like when they're in a lineage, your lineage, they will they will come to the most psychically open person that is in that family line to receive assistance. So while I was listening to what she was saying, there hadn't been a death in my family, a male death, like, in at all, not at all. So I was not understanding exactly who in my family would be from the other side trying to get a hold of me. So anyway, she goes on to describe him, and she says, I can tell he has dark brown hair, he is a tall guy, he seems really feminine. So right then, it kind of hit me, and I'm like, okay, cool, I gotta call you back, you know, or I gotta go. And I hang up the phone. So I sit in my chair, and I, you know, drop in and connect to this person, and sure enough, I realize that I'm talking to my deceased uncle, Uncle Larry. He is not blood related, but he was one of my mother's very, very best friends. And I was around him a lot when I was growing up, and he was my Uncle Larry. And Uncle Larry was a gay guy. So that's where the feminine, you know, part of that energy that she was picking up was coming from. And sure enough, he was kind of taller with dark hair, and you know, like I said, was very close to me and our family. And Uncle Larry died in an unhappy way. I'm not going to go into the details of it, but it was very sad. And as I'm as I'm talking to him, as my Uncle Larry, you know, I'm asking, you know, why he is here. Like, why didn't you, you know, go to heaven? At the time, that was still my understanding. Like, mind you, again, this was like in the very beginning of me starting to remember a lot of this wisdom and information. So, coming from a Christian background, you know, when you die, you go one of two places. And in my mind, you know, Uncle Larry deserved to go to heaven. So I asked him, you know, why aren't you in heaven? And he told me that because of the way that his life in this physical reality had ended, that there was a part of his soul that was stuck in Pardos, just like the in-between world. And that, excuse me, he actually wasn't able to get to heaven. that there actually was an aspect of him that had gone to the light, but there was this part of him left behind that felt a lot of guilt and shame and sadness and anger at God, and was like frankly really pissed off, about what happened. So this is bringing up a lot of emotion for me, as you can imagine, and I start to get all choked up. And so as I'm like through tears, I basically, with Larry's guidance and help, and the guidance and the help of the angels that I worked with at that time, kind of had my first like crash course experience on helping a deceased person into the light, which looked something like contacting another person who actually was a blood relation to Larry. In this case, it was his mother, who was on the other side. No, excuse me, I think it was his grandmother, actually. Either way, on the other side, and calling upon that person to come and pick up basically the person who's stuck. Because if a soul is confused and is trapped and is scared, they're more likely to trust someone that represents comfort to them, someone that they know. So it was that, his mother or grandmother, I actually can't remember which, came, and the vision that I was given was that Larry was like, he like went back to being a child, like a small boy, and it was like all of his life years just like went down, and he was a little kid, and he was really happy, and he was really little and cute and goofy, and he was all excited like mama or grandma, and ran up to her, and she had open arms and was so happy to receive him. And she says like, do you want to go to the light now? Do you want to go back to God? And he's like, yeah, totally, yay. And so it's like an image of them walking down my hallway in my apartment in this reality and dimension, of her as a woman and him as a small boy, and they're holding hands. They're walking down my hallway, and then in the other dimension, my hallway is actually like, the tunnel, that they say like, come to the light. It was very much like that. There was a bright light at the end of my hallway tunnel, and into it they went, and there was all these angels, like tons and tons and tons, not even in number, like just tons of angels, and they were all around everywhere, and there was a lot of joy and a lot of happiness. And he went to go be with God, that part of him. So I actually decided to tell my mother about this. I think I waited for a while after it happened, but sure enough, somehow, in a conversation randomly, I was like, oh, by the way, I totally helped Uncle Larry's soul pass into the light, the other day or whatever. And that was an interesting conversation to have. So that was kind of the beginning of it. Then after that, I have to admit that things got really, really intense as far as deceased people, and it wasn't ever people who had died nicely. Like there were no old, cute, grandparents who died peacefully of old age of natural causes, like asleep in their bed. No, it was all people who had died in tragedy, in horror, in pain, in sadness, in, conflict. Like, it was very unhappy death scenarios, and they were coming to me constantly. Like, constantly. There was actually a period of time, kind of embarrassing to admit, but where I couldn't even leave my apartment, and I didn't. And people started to kind of worry about me, like my friends and stuff, because I felt like I couldn't really tell certain groups of my friends what was going on, and I could really only tell like one group of my friends, and that was the group of my teachers, basically, and the healers and shamans that I was working with. And I couldn't even leave my apartment because everywhere I went, dead people were talking to me. Yes, it's just like the movie. I saw dead people everywhere, everywhere. And if you can imagine, like, walking out your door and all the people you see in a body, like, that are alive, imagine that times, like, 5. So for every one human being you see, imagine 5 other beings that are not alive, that are not in a body. And when I say see them, I don't mean like tangibly, like with Amon, basically, where it was like real, standing there in front of me. This is all happening in my mind's eye, in my sixth sense vision, which is absolutely no less as real as anything that anyone sees with their physical eyes. In some cases, actually, I believe what you see with the mind's eye is more real than what you see with your physical eyes. Because your physical eyes, ooh, eagle. Hi, eagle friend, through the window. Your physical eyes, speaking of eagles, eagle eye vision, right? The medicine of eagle is the ability to see the whole picture, perspective from way up above, and to be able to judge the situation based on that perception. So anyway, our eyes have been programmed ever since we were born to see certain things and to not see other things. And also, like yesterday, I was talking about ego glasses. We all have ego glasses that we look through with our eyes, but the third eye, the mind's eye, it doesn't so much look through ego glasses. It looks more like through eagle glasses. And there's no programs put on it. It sees like what is actually there. And it sees what everyone is capable of seeing. Now, I don't suggest that everyone ask to have their third eye blasted open so they can see dead people, because honestly, it really wasn't that fun. Until I learned, after years of study and practice, how to control it and how to use my gift in a way that was not detrimental to my psyche, to my mental, emotional well-being, but in a way that was actually productive and helpful. So that is what I do. And I actually really enjoy working. I don't so much work with beings anymore that are wanting to go to the light. I kind of retired from that. After some years of just doing that constantly, I feel like I kind of put in my time card on that one. But what I do allow in are deceased loved ones who have messages for people, who need to hear them. So I do, in my readings, often, have a deceased loved one, or even sometimes a deceased person that the person I'm doing the reading with may not even know or remember. It was like, a school teacher's husband from when that person who's now 35 was in the first grade, and he happened to meet him at, like the school Christmas play or whatever. So, there's things like that too that happen where the person's like, oh, I don't think that, that what you're saying rings a bell to me of anyone in my family or anyone that I know who's died. But, we have a lot of friends and a lot of helpers, and just because we don't remember who they are does not at all mean that they don't know who we are, and that they, may or may not have helpful information for us. So, yeah, that is the story for today. And please contact me. I would love to do a reading with you. I'm going to keep making videos to describe and explain about, the energies that I work with. I think it's important if you're going to, or when anyone chooses to work with a channel or a psychic or a medium, a healer, a shaman, a spiritual teacher, all of these things, that it is important to get a feel, for who they are and what they're offering and what they're about. The more information you have, the better choices you can make, and the more open you can be to receiving the help and guidance that is here for you. So that's what I really like to do. I like to offer help and guidance and healing through all kinds of channels and mediums and beings and entities. And I'm really good at what I do, and I really it just fills me with so much joy to be able, to offer this kind of help at this time, because it's really needed. The veils are thinning for everyone, and people are remembering and waking up and have questions and need help. So yeah, be in touch. LunaSeeLove@gmail.com. LunaSeeLove at gmail.com. Thank you so much. Namaste and aloha. And I will see you again soon. Bye.